I don't have an agenda against PSG. I genuinely don't really care if they do well without Mbappe in the future. But what I do have is an agenda against Luis Enrique. And I also have an agenda against PSG fans who are still dumb enough to be supporting Enrique. The PSG fans who are still talking about the process, about how this guy has done so well to lead PSG to the Champions League semi-finals this season. How Enrique has overperformed. You guys are delusional. And you're just coping with the fact that you guys have hired the worst manager in your entire history. Probably one of the worst cup managers of all time. A gung-ho possession merchant who doesn't know how to set up his team in defense and doesn't know how to manage cup ties at all. Enrique had one of the easiest draws PSG have ever had. No, I'm going to take that back. Enrique had the easiest draw that PSG had ever had. I mean, Thomas Tuchel, he faced pretty easy teams in the 1920 season, but the difference there is that Dortmund and Haaland, who was playing at an incredible level in that tie, and also against Leipzig and against Atlanta, those were one-off games where it's much more unpredictable, where upsets are much more likely to happen. Enrique, he faced all these weak teams in two-legged ties. He faced Real Sociedad, and he also faced one of the worst Barca teams in the past 10, 15, 20 years. And then he faced this mediocre Dortmund side. Again, possibly one of the worst Dortmund side in recent years. And he still struggled at every stage of the draw with a top 5 squad in Europe. If it weren't for Araujo standing off, PSG literally could have gotten trashed like 5-2 or 6-2 by that mediocre Barca side. So yeah, I have an agenda against you guys because you guys are still supporting this fraud who wasted an entire season both for Mbappe and PSG, who wasted probably PSG's best ever chance of winning the Champions League because he is a fucking shit manager. He's a fucking shit manager who still lives off that one season with MSN, with Rakitic, with Iniesta, with Piqué, with Mascherano, with Dani Alves, with Jordi Alba, that super team. But even with that squad, after that fluke season, he's just getting embarrassed, losing 4-0 to PSG, losing 3-0 to Juventus, and then coming to this PSG side with a top 5 squad, nearly getting grouped against mediocre Newcastle, Dortmund, and Milan sides, and then struggling at every stage of a Europa League level draw. This guy's a fraud. And I have a strong agenda against any idiotic PSG fan who is still talking about trusting the process. Trusting the process is if you guys lose to Bayern, if you guys lose to Madrid over 2 legs. Trusting the process isn't nearly getting trashed by one of the worst Barca sides in recent years, and then getting knocked out in humiliating fashion by a mediocre Dortmund side. While you have a top 5 squad in Europe, this isn't trusting the process. This is a dog shit process if it's true. And you know what? When PSG inevitably get embarrassed again in the Champions League next season with Luis Enrique at the helm, I'm going to be here. I'm going to remind you guys. I'm going to remind you guys that this is the process that you want. While Mbappe is playing at a much better club, under a much better manager who actually knows how to navigate cup ties. I mean, all the other managers before him, Emery, Tuchel, Pochettino, Galtier, all of them were a million times better than Enrique. They actually knew how to navigate cup ties. They actually knew when to defend. They actually knew how to set up their team defensively. They didn't struggle against mediocre sides like this in every draw. If you give them a Europa League level draw, 9 times out of 10, they are reaching the final easily. But not this fraud, right? Let's look at the coaches. You have Emery. He trashed Barcelona in the 16-17 season in the first leg. In the second leg, honestly, he was just unlucky. The refereeing in that game was pretty horrendous. Yeah, PSG kind of bottled that tie. But number one, that Barca team were way stronger than any team PSG faced this year. And the refereeing was also terrible in that game. So it's not nearly as bad as getting trashed by a mediocre Barcelona side and then getting knocked out in humiliating fashion by Dortmund. I mean, frankly speaking, Dortmund deserved to go through. And the next season, yeah, the way PSG crashed out against United was kind of humiliating. And I'm not going to lie, United weren't a great side. But I don't really think it was down to Emery, right? I think that was down to individual errors. Like Buffon, Buffon, being such an experienced goalkeeper, making that sort of mistake is frankly speaking, somewhat unforgivable. So I don't really blame Emery for that. The overall gameplay over 2 legs against United was good. PSG were the much better team over 2 legs, and little factors here and there, as well as a rather questionable penalty, knocked PSG out. This is completely different from PSG actually getting outplayed by mediocre Barcelona and Dortmund sides. And also, even against Real Sociedad, if it weren't for an Mbappe carry job, that would have been a really tough tie as well. And then Tuchel, Pochettino, I don't even have to say anymore. Both of them really knew how to navigate cup ties. They knew how to deal with the big teams. And even Gautier, first leg, if it weren't for Mbappe being injured, PSG probably would have drew or won the game. Second leg, sure, they got dominated at the Allianz Arena, but this is Bayern. This isn't Dortmund. This isn't one of the worst Barca sides in recent years. So yeah, to you idiotic PSG fans who are still trusting the Luis Enrique process, I have an agenda against you. When PSG inevitably get humiliated in the Champions League under Luis Enrique again, I will be there. I will be there to remind you that this is the process that you guys wanted. That this is the fraud you guys were backing. And after Luis Enrique gets fired, after getting humiliated in the Champions League again and again, I'll drop my agenda. Because I don't really have an agenda against PSG. If PSG get a good cup manager and they win the Champions League at some point, then, I'll be like, okay, congratulations. I wouldn't say I'd be happy for PSG, but I wouldn't be particularly bothered. But I have an agenda against Luis Enrique. And I have an agenda against any PSG fan who backs this fraud right now. To all the PSG fans who are sane, who have the common sense to realize that this guy is a fraud, I feel your pain. I stand with you. I will never troll you because I know the pain you're going through. I know the pain of having to deal with a dog shit cup manager like Luis Enrique. And I strongly suggest that you take my side. Right? For the good of your club. Having this dog shit manager around is not good for your club. PSG will never do anything in the Champions League with a guy who couldn't even navigate a Europa League level draw with one of the top 5 squads in Europe. So yeah, I can't wait to see Luis Enrique getting embarrassed in the Champions League again. Because I know what will happen. To all you PSG fans who are still backing this fraud, I will be there. I will be there to remind you when it happens. Good day to all of you.